Good morning, gentlemen. Again, I'm coming to you today from the Deanship of the Common Year at Majma University. And again, we are doing the English second language course, the online version. I am your teacher, Dale Warren. Again, I am covering speaking as the language skill in this video, and we are doing Unit 7 of Level 1. We are using the same textbook that we have been using for the last few modules, so you will see that it is the normal Q Skills for Success, Book 1, and it is listening and speaking, not reading and writing. And it is, as you can see in the little block in the left-hand corner, an orange colored front page. All right, if you haven't yet got your books, please pause the video and go and fetch the book quickly. Okay, you should all now have your book. So let us discuss what we are covering today. Our lesson contents for today are A, using the verb to be to make imperatives, and that is on page 136, and using check questions, which is on page 140. Our homework will be on making imperatives on page 136, but I will cover that in detail at the end of the unit. Okay, I need you to be on page 136. Where we are going to go into making imperatives with the verb to be. All right, the section of the book on page 136 that we are looking at is this section here, where it says imperative of be plus the adjective. Okay, let us start with some definitions today so that I know you all understand what I am talking about. First of all, we need to define that word, imperative. Please all say after me, imperative. All right. An imperative simply means a command. It is something you must do. When we make imperatives or commands, we use verbs. And as you will remember from our last few lessons, verbs are action words. They are something that you do. We use verbs or action words to make imperatives because when I give you an imperative, I am telling you you have to do something. So the verb is a doing word or an action word. An imperative is something that tells you what you must do. Okay, we use the base form of the verb to make the positive imperative. So, sit down sit in that chair. In those two examples, that word sit is the verb. It's the base form of the verb, and it is the imperative. I am telling you, sit. If I say, come here, come to the front, come is the base form of the verb to come. It is an action word, and it is an imperative. I am telling you, come. You have to come. It is something you must do. If I say to you, listen to me, or listen carefully, again, listen is a verb, an action word. It is the base form of the verb, and it is the imperative. I am telling you that is what you have to do. You must listen. You must listen carefully. You must listen to me. Listen is the command. It is the imperative. If I use the verb to be, then that word be is the verb. It is the base form of the verb. And again, we use it in the imperative. So I say, be quiet. Be careful. I am giving you an instruction. I am giving you a command. I am giving you an imperative. I am telling you, you must be quiet. You must be careful. Okay, that is the positive imperative. I am telling you what to do. So let us make a note of that. The positive imperative tells you what you must do. Now, the negative imperative tells you what you must not do. Okay, so the positive imperative tells you what you have to do. The negative imperative tells you what you must not do. To make the negative imperative is very easy. We put that short word don't in front of the positive imperative, in front of the base form of the verb. So let us look at some examples. All right. So if I have a positive imperative, eat the curry, and eat is the base verb, it is the then very simply, if I want to change the positive imperative and make it negative, all I have to do is put don't. So eat the curry is the positive imperative. The negative imperative is don't eat the curry. If I say listen to Muhammad, that is a positive imperative. If I want to make it a negative imperative, I say don't listen to Muhammad. And I'm telling you what you mustn't do. If I say drift across the highway, that is the positive imperative. I'm telling you, you must drift across the highway. If I want to make that negative, all I do is I put don't in front, and it then becomes don't drift across the highway. It has now become the negative imperative. If I say hit Marzen, it means you must go and hit Marzen. It is a positive imperative. To make it a negative imperative, all I do, I put don't in front and it becomes don't hit Marzen. You must not hit Marzen. I am telling you what you mustn't do when I put the don't in front. If I say read your book, that is the positive imperative. That means you must sit and read your book. If I want to change it to don't read your book, then it is a negative imperative. So all we need to do to make the negative imperative is we take that little word don't and we put it in front of the positive imperative, and then the positive imperative becomes negative. All you do is you put that little word don't in front. Now, this is how we make normal imperatives with normal verbs. When it's a positive imperative, you just use the base form of the verb. If it's a negative imperative, you put don't and then the base form of the verb. Now, we can also use the verb to be to make imperatives. And usually when we use be to make an imperative, we make a construction that can have 2 blocks, or it can have 3 blocks, or it can have 4 blocks. It has to have at least 2 blocks, which are the be and the adjective, but you can also add 2 other blocks. You can add an infinitive and you can add a predicate. So we can have a construction of 2 blocks, 3 blocks, or 4 blocks using the imperative from the verb to be. It's a very simple construction and we're going to work through it now step by step. Okay, before we go into the construction, I want to check that you remember what these words mean. An adjective is a describing word. It is a word like big, fat, clever, rich, cold, tall, young, old. All those words are adjectives. An adjective tells you something about somebody or something else. Okay. An adjective is a word that tells us about somebody or something. So it tells us if somebody is clever, it tells us if he is young or if he is old. It is a describing word. It tells you about somebody or something. The infinitive is to, that little word to, plus the base verb. So if we have some examples of the infinitive, to plus eat equals to eat. All right, if I take the base verb cook and I add it to, it becomes to cook, and that is an infinitive. If I have the base verb travel and I add it to the particle to, and it becomes to travel is the infinitive. All right, so whenever you have that little word to and then the base form of a verb afterwards, that is an infinitive. Okay, you should remember this because we have covered this in the previous lessons, but just to make sure that you do. Okay, now let us go through the construction. Remember what I said, it is a construction that can either fit into one box, to two boxes, or to three boxes, or to four boxes. So you can just make a two-box construction with be or don't be and then the adjective, or you can make a three-box construction if you use the infinitive, and you can make a four-box construction if you use the predicate as well. So let us look at some examples. If I say be, that is the imperative. Okay, so don't be and be are the imperative. Then we have an adjective, a describing word. And in this case, our describing word is happy. So we can say to you, be happy. And that is a proper construction. However, if we want to make it a longer construction, we can say, be happy to go. So you must be happy that you are going. So there it becomes a three-box construction. If we want to make it a four-box construction, we can say, be happy to go on holiday. So you can use this basic construction of be plus the adjective, or don't be plus the adjective, or you can make it a longer construction by adding in the infinitive, and you can make it a longer construction still if you add an infinitive and an imperative. Okay, so if we look at our second example, again we start with an imperative, be, and again we have an adjective, careful, and we can just leave it at that. We can say, be careful. We are telling somebody he must be cautious. But we don't have to stop there. If we want to make a different construction, we can say, be careful to listen. And then we are adding in an infinitive, and it has become a three-block construction. we don't have to stop there. We can, but we don't have to. We can say, be careful to listen to your teacher. And now it is a 4-block construction. We can change this one, and instead of having be happy to go, we can say be happy to learn, and we can say be happy to learn new things. Again, you can make a 2-block construction, be happy. You can make a 3-block construction, be happy to learn. Or you can make a 4-block construction, be happy to learn new things. If we look at this example, be sure. I can advise you generally about something. Okay, be sure. I can also make this a 3-block construction. Be sure to follow, and I can make it a 4-block construction. The instructions. So, again, we have the basic pattern that you have your imperative, which will be or don't be. You will have your adjective, which here is sure. You will have your infinitive, which is to plus the base verb, remember. And here we're using an infinitive to follow. And we will have a predicate, the instructions. We can make a 2-block construction with the imperative be and the adjective prepared. But we can make it a longer construction if we want, and we can add an infinitive, be prepared to work. And if we want to make it a 4-block construction, we can say, be prepared to work hard. Right. All of these examples, be, were positive imperatives. So now I want to do 2 examples with negative imperatives. And remember, the negative imperative is don't be. Okay, so we will make negative imperatives. And again, you can have your negative imperative, don't be, in block number 1. In block number 2, you have an adjective, and in this case, scared. Don't be scared. If we want to make it a longer construction, we can say, don't be scared to ask. And then we use an infinitive, which is that little word to, and ask, which is the base verb of the verb to ask. Okay. And finally, we can make it a 4-block construction if we want. Don't be scared to ask questions. We can do this, and we can make a negative imperative in the first block, don't be. We can put the adjective afraid in the second block. And we can just make a sentence that goes, don't be afraid. But if we want to make a longer construction, we can say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. So instead of stopping at 2 blocks, we can use an infinitive, to plus make, in block number 3. And in block number 4, we can add a predicate. And so we have a construction that is 4 blocks. As long as you remember this basic 4-block pattern. That your first block must be either the positive imperative, which starts with be, or it must be the negative imperative, don't be. And in the second block, you have an adjective, a describing word like happy, careful, sure. And in the third block, you have an infinitive, which is to plus the base form of the verb. And then in the fourth block, you can put a predicate like new things or the instructions or whatever else. But it is a very simple construction as long as you remember that basic 4-block pattern. You should be able to do it. Just break your sentence down into those 4 blocks. The imperative, the adjective, the infinitive, and the predicate. Okay. Right. Moving on, we are going to be doing on page 140 check questions. So I need you all to go back to the textbook and put in 140 and halfway down on page 140 you will find a section that says checking for listeners' understanding. All right. Now, let us discuss what check questions are and when we use a check question. A check question is a question we ask after we have given an imperative to somebody. Okay. And remember, an imperative is an instruction, a command, something you have to do. All right. So a check question is the question you ask after you have given a command to somebody. We ask the question to see that person understands the imperative. He knows what you are saying. So let us go through the check question construction. So say I am speaking to Walid. I give an imperative to Walid. I give Walid a command. I tell him, Walid, you have to do something, or please do something. So I say to Walid, Walid, please bring me the English textbook. Okay. I have given Walid an instruction. I've phrased it politely, but basically it's a command, it's an imperative. Walid, bring me the English textbook. I now ask Walid a check question. Do you know the Q Skills book? I am asking Walid, does he know the Q Skills book? Because I want to know that he understands which English textbook I am speaking about. Otherwise, he will give me the alphabet book instead. He will bring the wrong book. So I give him the command, please bring me the English textbook, and then I ask the check question. Do you know the Q Skills book? If I say to the students, gentlemen, do exercise A on page 123 for homework. I have given them a command. I have told them in the imperative, you must do exercise A on page 123 for your homework. Then I ask them a check question. Do you all understand the way to do the exercise? Okay. So I know that we are all discussing the same exercise because they will answer me and they will say, yes, on page 123, you must do this. If I say to Kate, Kate, ask Ali to come and see me. I don't know if Kate knows who Ali is. So I give Kate the instruction first. I give her the imperative. Kate, ask Ali to come and see me. But then I say to Kate, Kate, do you know who Ali is? Because I am worried that she will ask Ahmed to come and see me because she doesn't know who Ali is and she gets Ali confused with Ahmed or she gets Ali confused with Abdurrahman. So I must check with Kate that Kate really knows who Ali is. Okay, so every time you tell somebody, the person, Walid, or the students, or Kate, something they must do, an imperative or a command, you then ask them a question so that we understand that they know what you mean when you give them that command. All right. Now, in English, we very often ask check questions. And the check questions that are asked most often in English are these. Does everyone understand? Does that make sense? Is that clear? Are there any questions? Okay, what I want you guys to do now have a look at these three instructions. Ali, please fetch the water bottles from my office. Class M107, you must be on time for the exam. Students, you must bring pens and calculators to the exam. And I want you guys on a piece of paper to fill in a check question here, a check question here, and a check question here. Okay, so if our first instruction is Ali, please fetch the water bottles from my office, then you must look at these four check questions. Does everyone understand? Does that make sense? Is that clear? Are there any questions? Choose one of those and put it down for 1. Then I want you to look at 2. Class M107, you must be on time for the exam. And again, see which check question from these 4 will complete this correctly. And if we have number 3, students, you must bring pens and calculators to the exam. What would you ask as a question? Does everybody understand? Does that make sense? Choose one of those 4 and put it against 3. Okay, just do it on a piece of paper. pause the video and write 3 different check questions that will complete the imperative in these 3 different examples. Alright, so pause the video and see which would be a suitable answer. Alright, you should have been able to do it. Does that make sense would be a good one there. Or you could ask him, Ali, do you understand? Is that clear? You could have asked Ali, is that clear? You could have asked Ali, are there any questions? Class M107, you must be on time for the exam. You could have asked them, is that clear? You could have asked them, are there any questions? You could also have asked, does that make sense? You could have asked, do you all understand? Any one of those answers is perfect. If we said to the students, you must bring pen and calculator to the exam, again, you could have put all those answers there. You could have said, is that clear? Any of those answers are good check questions. You can ask the student, you can say to the students, you must bring pen and calculators to the exam. That is your command, that is your imperative. And then you could have asked, does that make sense, as your check question? Or you could have asked, are there any questions? You could have asked, do you all understand? You could have asked, is that clear? Any one of those answers is very good. All right, so basically to wrap up here, when you give somebody an instruction, if it is Waleed, or if it is the students, or if it is Kate, or if it is Ali, firstly you give the imperative, the instruction, bring that English textbook, do exercise A, but then you ask the check question. Do you know the Q Skills textbook? Do you understand how to do the exercise? You must ask a question to check that the listener understands. All right. Lastly today, guys, our homework. And we are going back to the imperative section, which is on page 136. All right. Remember what I said. That you need to use this construction to make imperatives. All right, so we have five different adjectives, and the adjectives they use are afraid, careful, prepared, ready, and sure. Now the first step, if you do not know what some of these English words mean, afraid, careful, prepared, ready, or sure, look those words up in an English Arabic dictionary and then write the Arabic meaning next to the word afraid, next to the word careful, next to prepared, next to ready, next to sure. Now, I am going to need you to make 5 sentences from these 5 adjectives. The way you make the sentences is the way we did it in the exercise. These words are adjectives, so they will all go in box number 2. Okay, now in box number 1, we must put either don't be for a negative adjective imperative or be for a positive one. So for afraid, best we say don't be. And let us do be for prepared, a positive imperative. Don't be afraid. Now we must give it infinitive, which is to plus the base verb. Don't be afraid to say what you think. If we have to make a sentence with prepared, we can say be prepared, and then we can use an infinitive. To read English books. Okay. Remember, these 5 sentences must be on being an English student. Okay, so you need to make 5 sentences, and the 5 sentences must be about studying English. The 5 sentences must each use one of those adjectives, and the 5 sentences have to cover this pattern. So, they have to start with an imperative, then they have the adjective, then they have the infinitive, and then they have the predicate. So, don't be afraid to say what you think. That follows the pattern. Be prepared to read English books. That follows the pattern. What I need you all to do now, I want you to make 5 sentences of your own following that pattern. They must be 5 sentences on studying English. Those are the adjectives you need to use. And when you have made your 5 sentences, I need you to write the sentences over here. The sentences must be written on this page, page 136. When you have written your 5 sentences, one using afraid, one using careful, one using prepared, one using ready, and one using sure over here, then I need you to take a photo of page 136 when you have written the sentences and email the photo to your speaking teacher as homework. Alright, so that is the homework I need you guys to do. You need to do page 136, exercise A, and it is making 5 sentences on studying English. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and I will be coming back to you again next week.